In Desperate Housewives Season 8, Gaby, Bree, Lynette, Susan help cover up Carlos's murder of Gaby's stepfather, Alejandro or Ramon or whatever his name was. Now, someone finds out that they covered up the murder, and this person starts blackmailing Bree, and it really makes Bree very sad as she's in a dark place, and it also ruins Bree's friendship with the other women. Now, this someone turns out to be Orson Hodge, Bree's ex-husband who has gone crazy, and Orson tries to destroy Bree so that he can have her for himself. Now, a lot of people were disappointed that the blackmailer turned out to be Orson Hodge because Orson was such a great character. He was an awesome hero in season 3 and pretty good in season 4 and had a lot of character development in season 5 and 6 and was decent in season 7. And to see such a wonderful character turn into a villain was sad for many people. And I sympathize with the sentiment, but I think that the fact that they could turn a wonderful character like Orson into a villain is excellent character development. Anti-character development, yes, but still excellent, a very nice storyline to do it. So I think having Orson be the blackmailer was very smart, and I would give it like a 94 out of 100. It would score like a 94%. But I do agree that there are many other people who could have been the blackmailers instead. There could have been many other characters used as the blackmailers, and perhaps these other candidates could have been connected to the other women instead of Bree. So, in the case of Gaby, her own mother is a jerk, to put it nicely. Gaby's mother resented Gaby because Gaby's mother blamed Gaby for Gaby getting assaulted by Gaby's stepdad. So Gaby's mother knew that Gaby was getting assaulted by the stepdad, and she blamed Gaby for it. Instead of taking her defenseless daughter's side, she decided to blame her daughter for something that was not her fault. And Gaby's mother is also pretty much a jerk in other ways because she exploits people for money, takes advantage of people, and leeches onto whoever she thinks will benefit her at the moment. And she is just a all-around pure awful person. And Carlos basically told her off and made her go away. So, because of course Carlos was sickened by Gaby's mother and what she was, he was trying to be nice to her and give her a chance. But when he realized what she was doing, he was pretty much angry. And of course, the last time we see Gaby's mother, she offered to be Gaby and Carlos's surrogate. But of course, when it became clear that she was only doing it to take advantage of Gaby and to blackmail her, Carlos had her go away, and Gaby's mom basically went to one of her aunts. Now, Gaby's mother is a perfect candidate because she has resentment towards Gaby, and she has a personal connection to the deceased. She used to be married to Gaby's stepfather, so she can exploit the murder of her ex-husband to get back at her daughter, whom she wants revenge on. So perfect motive. Gaby's mother would be a perfect candidate, and her story was never resolved after she went away. And maybe her motivations this time would be that she wants money from Gaby and Carlos, or maybe she just wants to destroy them and get revenge. Another candidate for Gaby would be that nun, that sister, whose name escapes me at the moment, but she was getting a little too cozy with Carlos, and Gaby had her sent away to a mission, or maybe it was another church or whatever. But basically that nun gets into a physical fight with Gaby, and there's a physical altercation in the middle of the Catholic Church. And that nun was, she was very, very resentful towards Gaby. So she would have a motive to destroy Gaby. Maybe she wants Carlos for herself, or perhaps she just wants to destroy Gaby. And in this case, the nun would have strayed very far away from God. And the nun's name was Sister Mary Bernard. I just remembered. It was Sister Mary Bernard. Now, Gaby could have also been blackmailed by John Rowland. John Rowland never grew up, and he had an affair with Gaby while she was married to Carlos. So John Rowland was the mistress, and John Rowland later intentionally helped prolong Carlos's prison sentence, and John Rowland may have fathered Gaby's child, whom she lost to a miscarriage. And John Rowland cheated on his own pregnant fiance with Gaby. Actually, no, fiance wasn't pregnant. He cheated on his fiance, but she was not pregnant yet. So, but he still cheated on his fiance with Gaby. And John cheated on, or tried to cheat on his pregnant wife with Gaby. And John Rowland later divorced his wife, but after that, John Rowland led on Carlos's niece, Ana Solis, and John basically tried to force himself on Gaby. He did force himself on Gaby, actually, and he kissed her forcibly, and of course she rejected him. But it's clear that he never grew up, and he's still the same homewrecker that he always has been. And he hasn't changed his habits. He's a very entitled little brat. And he would, of course, perhaps have some resentment towards Gaby at this point for rejecting him. And he would have a motive for wanting to destroy Gaby and Carlos. Maybe he wants to destroy Carlos and make Gaby come to him. Maybe he just wants to destroy them both and get revenge. He wouldn't really need money because he is getting a lot of alimony from his ex-wife, who was very rich. And John Rowland's ex-wife's dad, so his former father-in-law, was friends with Victor Lang, which brings us to the next candidate, Milton Lang, Victor's father. So Milton Lang hated Gaby because he knew that she cheated on Victor. And Milton also never really liked Gaby to begin with because he only saw Gaby as a political tool to help Victor's career. And so Milton basically kicked Gaby out of Victor's funeral. And it seemed clear that Milton didn't want anything to do with Gaby. But what if he did? What if he wanted to destroy her? But the reason that Milton wouldn't be the best candidate, it's because Milton is very, very rich. And we saw that Victor, being very rich, just took matters into his own hands, and he was very direct, and he literally just tried to kill Gaby and Carlos personally. So I feel like Milton, if he really wanted Gaby gone, would have operated in a very similar fashion. And Milton would not have required indirect blackmail methods to destroy Gaby and Carlos. He would have just done it with his money, and he would have just done it very quickly. So Milton would not be a great candidate. Now, John Rowland's mother would be an excellent candidate because John Rowland's mother obviously despises Gaby because what Gaby did to John when he was underage was statutory assault. So John Rowland's mother also helped sabotage Gaby and Carlos's adoption process. And so Gaby's mom would have a lot of motive to go after Gaby and try to destroy her. Now, another potential candidate could possibly be Gaby's biological daughter, Grace's dad. So the dad who raised her. Remember, he was unfortunately deported. And so it was Gaby's mistake because Gaby made him drive the car and he got pulled over by the police. And it turns out he didn't have an ID because he was undocumented. So Gaby accidentally got him deported. So it would make sense that he would have some resentment towards Gaby. Maybe he wants to blackmail Gaby and Carlos and make them give him money so that he can use that money to get back in and be reunited with his family. So he could have really had a big motive for taking down Gaby. Of course, out of all these candidates I listed, his would be the most understandable, even though it would still be wrong. So those would be the candidates for who could potentially be trying to take down Gaby. And this is far-fetched, but Zach Young could be trying to take down Gaby as well because Zach Young was angry at Gaby for rejecting him in season 3. Zach Young was furious, and Zach Young said some pretty mean things to her, and he almost gave her a little bit of a warning. So because Zach Young is trying to get revenge on Gaby, it would be a continuation of that very bizarre storyline between Zach Young and Gaby from season 3. So Zach Young. And Zach Young could have also been blackmailing Susan as well, because Zach Young had a contentious relationship with Susan because Zach Young had a crush on Julie, but Susan wanted Zach Young gone, and Susan also had a big conflict and fight with Zach Young. So So Zach Young could have blackmailed Susan. Now, of course, at the same time as they could have gone the story route of having Zach Young blackmail Susan and maybe also Gaby, and maybe Zach Young is the one who ends up killing Mike Delfino because Zach has gone completely haywire at this point. So that would have been a very interesting storyline for Zach. Now, in terms of Susan Meyer, she could have been getting blackmailed by Jackson, her ex-boyfriend. He seemed to think that Mike was the one who had him deported when it was really Dave. It was Dave Williams who helped get Jackson deported to Canada. But Jackson doesn't know that, and Jackson thinks that it was Mike who did it. So Jackson could be angry at Mike and resentful, and he could be very mad that Mike and Susan got back together. So Jackson might be trying to get revenge on Mike and Susan, and maybe at the end of season 8, Jackson could have been the one to pull the trigger on Mike, literally. Ian Hainsworth is another candidate. Ian Hainsworth hated Mike, and Ian, of course, basically proposed to Susan, even though he had already been planning on doing it, because he knew that Mike had already had a ring. So Ian really just did a slick, underhanded move to ruin Mike's hopes with Susan. And of course, Susan ended up choosing Mike over Ian. So Ian Hainsworth could have been very angry, and he might have wanted Susan and Mike to suffer. And in Ian's case, he has a lot of money too, but the difference is he is more emotionally invested, and maybe he would want to make Susan and Mike suffer, so Ian would have a very big motive. Theoretically, Dave Williams could have been doing it to Susan, but Dave Williams is, or I guess I should call him David Dash, is in, I believe, in an institution, and he's not doing well mentally, and he couldn't even bring himself to kill MJ, so I'm not sure that he would still be in a position or mentally to be able to blackmail Susan that way. So yes, now Susan, this one is a stretch, but I guess Addison Prudy's wife, so Susan's biological father's wife, because Susan's biological father cheated on his wife with Susan's mom, Sophie, and that's how Susan ended up getting born. So that was Susan's biological father, Addison's wife, and Susan had a talk, and she didn't blame Susan for it because obviously it's not Susan's fault, but she was still very upset about Addison, and Addison said that he was working out his marriage. So maybe it's possible that Addison's wife ended up getting really mad, and she decided to take her anger out on Susan. So that's a possibility. Now, there was, of course, the teacher at Susan's school where she teaches, who thought that Susan has a crush on her, and this woman basically kissed Susan and tried to have a thing, but of course Susan wasn't really interested in having a relationship with her, so maybe she got angry and decided to get revenge on him. Theoretically, it could have been Eddie, the choker guy who was choking people, girls, and he might have wanted to get revenge on Susan because she laughed at him, and even though he seemed like he turned around and decided to turn himself in and start a better life, I guess. Maybe he escaped prison and decided to go back to his old ways, or maybe different ways. He decided to blackmail instead of choke. And Eddie could have theoretically been blackmailing Bree as well, because no, not Bree, Lynette. Eddie could have been blackmailing Lynette because even though Lynette was the only one who showed him kindness and was so nice to him and was just such a sweet motherly figure to him, maybe Eddie has just gone completely off the deep end and he's too far gone, and he decides to blame Lynette, the one person who stood up for him and was there for him, and he decides to take it out on Lynette because he is unable to deal with his emotions. So maybe he has some sort of convoluted motive for doing mean stuff to Lynette, so maybe he's blackmailing Lynette. And in terms of Lynette, her other blackmailers could be Rick, the guy that she sort of had an emotional affair with, and Tom thought that she had an affair with him, but she didn't really have an affair with him, but he clearly liked her. Rick clearly liked her, and he was very creepy and trying to get to her and get in between her and Tom, and Rick also tried to destroy Tom's pizza place by opening his own, but of course Rick's pizza place got burned down by Porter and Preston Scavo, who were manipulated by Scavo. So, and of course I meant to say Kayla Scavo. Porter and Preston were manipulated by Kayla Scavo into burning down Rick's pizza place. And Kayla Scavo is another candidate because Kayla Scavo, very, in a terrible way, Kayla Scavo tried to send Lynette to prison because Kayla burned herself and falsely accused Lynette of abusing her. So Kayla has been shown to do horrible, terrible things to Lynette before, and she also blackmailed Tom, and she really severely injured Preston and Porter, and by making them jump from the roof. So Kayla Scavo is crazy, and she hates Lynette a lot. She really, really hates her, and so she would have an excellent motive to go after Lynette and blackmail her in that way. Now, Lynette could potentially have been targeted by that babysitter woman. I don't remember her name, from season 1 or something. They didn't end on good terms, but maybe she's a little bit of a stretch. And Lynette could have also been targeted by that woman who was always mean to Lynette at work, and this woman was also having an affair with the male secretary or something. And Lynette basically got this woman fired. And so this woman already hated Lynette before, but of course now this woman would have some motive to go after Lynette. I don't remember this woman's name, unfortunately, but so many names I don't remember. But yes, this woman would have a good motive to go after Lynette as well. Lynette, I guess, could have been targeted by Anne Schilling. Yes, Anne Schilling, Porter's friend's mom. So Porter had an affair with married woman Anne Schilling, and Anne Schilling lied and pretended to be pregnant with Porter's baby. And of course, Anne Schilling was also getting abused by her actual husband. And her actual husband thought that Porter burned down his shop or store or bar or whatever it was. And Anne Schilling didn't seem to have ill will towards Lynette personally, but of course she nearly destroyed Lynette's family, and Anne Schilling was just a desperate, horrible woman, and maybe Anne Schilling needs a lot of money, and so maybe she blackmails Lynette because she thinks that she can get to Lynette in some way. And yeah, so basically there are so many candidates for all the women. Any one of these candidates would have had great motives to blackmail the women, but this is assuming that any of these candidates found out about their murder. And so the reason Orson found out is because he was following and stalking Bree the whole time. So because Orson was stalking and following Bree, that's how he followed them and found out that they were burying a dead body, literally. So Orson ended up being the candidate. Now, theoretically, I mean, Gaby's mom could have been stalking Gaby. Kayla Scavo could have been stalking Lynette. Ian Hainsworth could have been stalking Susan. So assuming that any of these candidates had found out about what the women did to cover up Alejandro's murder, these guys could have been potential candidates. So it didn't have to be Orson. It could have been anyone else, as the multiple people I mentioned. But I'm glad it was Orson, but I also think it would have been very interesting to see who else it could have been. Now, I think that out of all these candidates that I mentioned, the ones I like the best are Gaby's mother. She would have had a great motive to do it. I think that Kayla Scavo would have been excellent. Ian Hainsworth, I think so. He would have been excellent. So I think Gaby's mom, Kayla Scavo, and Ian Hainsworth would have been the best candidates, but I'm glad they picked Orson, but I wouldn't have minded to see anyone else.